thank you. I want to welcome everybody. Before we welcome people, if you haven't done your raffle tickets, please go now because they are getting ready to close it up. So if you do your raffle tickets, please go now. You want to raise your hand and just go and go? Well, and I want to, we have our speaker. I want to welcome Michaela Columbo. She's our speaker today. I think all of you know her. She's the Mashpee Select Woman, and if you'd like to stand up, and thank you so much for coming. We have another guest, Susan. Would you mind standing up? Susan Wren, she's our Massachusetts State Senator, and she came to host us, to visit us as well. So a warm welcome to you, Susan. Okay, and we have another guest, Dawn. Where are you, Dawn? Dawn, where are you from?
From Mashpee? Yes, I'm from Mashpee.
Well, welcome. We're so glad you came. Okay, we have some new members. Julie. Where'd Julie go? Julie. Okay, Julie, welcome. Where are you from?
Oh, I come from England, so I live in Mashpee.
She's in Sussex. Not Surrey, right? Yeah. Okay, we have Linda. Linda will join, but this is her first meeting, right?
Mashpee and Fair.
There's always somebody that does it. Okay. And Julie. Julie, this is Julie Beal Kennedy.
Where are you from?
I live in Mashpee, Walpole. Oh, awesome. I thought this was Mobile.
Right next door.
Okay, and did we all do Linda? Linda? We did do Linda? Linda, we did Linda. But only one we have left is Dale. Where's Dale? Oh, Dale, she's new, but we have her doing the 50-50. So when she comes in, we'll welcome her. Okay, now I want to thank you to our greeters. Would you wave? Mary Liz, Pat. There was our greeters at our table. Okay, and I'm thanking Norma Jean and Dale for doing the 50-50. This was to support Independence House. Independence House is, you know, the one in Hyannis for women, abused women. And we're doing it for 3 months this time. It's a new program we're doing, just to raise more money for one group. So we did it in January, we're doing it today, and we'll do the 50-50 again in March, and then we'll present the money to them. Just so that if we can bring awareness to them for their help, they need support, and plus they get more money. Okay. Now, and Kathy Frangillo did the centerpieces today, so I want to give her a big thank you, but she's not here. Okay. Now, before I start, I'm going to wait till Norma Jean gets in, and I'll thank her, because we had a special program a few weeks ago, and I'll tell you about that in a minute. Meanwhile, Carolyn has a couple of things that she wants to say.
Hello, ladies. I'm in charge of programs, and I am so excited. Next month, we're having Here Comes the Bride. Now, if you notice, this says my humans are getting married. Nancy Franks is going to come, and she's going to discuss traditions, superstitions, unusual weddings, even weddings that took place from celebrities and the White House. So, if you can fit in your wedding gown, please wear it. Otherwise, wedding attire. There will be a throwing of the bouquet, but I have to tell you, no grooms are going to be provided. And the other good thing is, you don't have to bring a gift. Okay, spoiler alert, I won't be wearing my wedding gown. I think it shrunk in the basement. Also, in April, we're having the Colonel from Joint Base Cape Cod, and he's going to come and talk about all of the things that are going on there. So I am truly, truly excited. Please try and make both of these. They're going to be a fun event.
Okay. It is going to be fun. And the centerpieces are going to be a surprise. They're hilarious for the bridal. Okay. Our golf outing, Cindy Collins is running again, and the date is Tuesday, June 4th. There'll be a flyer coming out for it, but we're gonna have to, have it first just for the members. We have so many members now. We have tons of members, over 250. So I think as of now. And so we're gonna have to just limit it first, just for the members, because it's usually a sellout. And it's gonna be at Holly Ridge, and it's just a great fun time. It's, if I'm not mistaken, Catherine, it's best ball, right?
Yes.
Best ball? Yeah. Okay. Because people like me that really, I have gloves because my husband keeps giving them to me. So it's really good for me to have best ball. Okay, now, I can't wait for Norma Jean. Norma Jean and Pat raised her hand, Cindy Collins, they did a phenomenal job. They got together and we made blankets. I think it was 22. 22. Yeah, we made 12, and Jean Dennis kindly made 10 herself. And so Norma Jean is a huge thank you for her, and Pat and Cindy Collins. And not only did we do the blankets, which we felt so good about. They're for children. There's a big need in Mashpee and other communities for children who need comfort when some trauma happens to them. It actually breaks my heart to even think that they need it, but they do. And so we had so many people signing up. It was a lunch bunch too, and at Holly Ridge, and we had the place taken over. We had to do a wait list. There were so many people that wanted to give. It kind of does it ticks the boxes on all of our list: social, education, and giving. And so it was something that we all wanted to do. We learned that some people just need help, and it was very educational for a lot of people to open their eyes on what the need is on Cape Cod. So anyway, I guess Norma Jean's gone again. But anyway, so thank all of you. Why don't you raise your hand, those who attended the event? Wasn't it amazing?
I was at the event, and it was just perfect in every way. The Holly Ridge Golf Club has wonderful food and camaraderie, and then we got to make these beautiful blankets, and it was one of those win-win situations. And just a little side note I thought was interesting, they actually had a sale rack of their golf wear in the ladies' room. So that was a nice opportunity. But anyway, it was a blast. Thank you.
And it was just a lot of fun, and it was very relaxing and everything. So thank you all for doing that. And we're going to do another one when we'll let you know when it comes. But you have to sign up, because I'm telling you, those spots fill up pretty fast. Is there any question? Oh, I do have one more thing to say. Pat, will you stand up? She's going to be in charge of our nominating committee. You guys get rid of me at the end of August. and we start our new slate. And so I want to tell you that the more you know that, but the more you give, the more you get out. And you truly do, honestly and truly. The more you give, the more you get. And so if you want to be an officer or be in any part of the board, if you would let Pat know, me, or any of the people on the committee that will be coming out, the email will be coming out on the committee. But they're in charge of it. We'll vote for the slate, because we know we moved the date now to July, because we were doing our annual meeting in June with the fashion show, and it's just too much. So we're going to be voting in July. So if somebody asks you to do something, please think about it, because we would love to have you. We need new blood, and we need exciting people, and it's just, and believe me, it's a lot of fun. We did our board meeting, well, snow day, so we couldn't do it. But we did it, I'm from New Orleans, in case, and I love Mardi Gras, so we had a Mardi Gras party. I mean, so the board is fun, so don't think it's just all work, it's fun too, okay? Enjoy your meal. Thanks.
Lucky today to have one of our own members speaking to us today. Okay? Michaela is a former professor from University of Massachusetts in Lowell. She has her doctorate in education, and she's here to talk about the challenges, choices, and solutions we have for Mashpee going forward. So I think it's going to be a great talk, and I'm looking forward to hearing everything she has to say. And I think she brought us luck because 4 people at our table were a centerpiece, and Susan never wins.
Thank you so very much. Let me just adjust the microphone for Mashpee TV, which I didn't want to do before I came up.
No worries. You need help?
Does it? Can I hold it? Sorry, everybody. It's not good. Yes, please. So, Chris, thank you, Chris. Okay, can you hear me without the mic, or do you prefer the mic? Okay, all right. Good afternoon. Thank you to the Mashpee Women's Club. Thank you to all of you for being here. And thanks for the opportunity to the water glass. Yes, thank you.
Is the mic on?
The mic is on. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you about some of the challenges confronting Mashpee and towns of the Upper Cape today. Oops,
Thank you.
stay here for a minute. As I was thinking about today's talk, I was thinking we really have 2 major crises in Mashpee. We have a housing crisis. We have almost 40% of workers Cape-wide that drive over the bridge each day. And houses are becoming more and more expensive, and fewer young people can afford to live here. It's a definite crisis that we need to address. However, in order to address that, we have to deal with another crisis, and that's what I want to talk to you about today. And that's a crisis with our water. We can't build the kind of housing we need, the housing density that we need, until we take care of the water that we have. Okay, I brought this slide up to personalize this a little bit. I'm an avid swimmer. I swim year-round in Mashpee Sound. I swim without a wetsuit. And this was a happy picture in 2021. I had just finished what I call my snow swim. Throughout the year, I go in with 2 other women. The summer following this, the summer of 2022, I went down and we had intended to do our jetty swim. So we would swim from the state beach. I walked some of it, but we would swim down to the jetty. I got into the water that day, and the water had kind of a brown scum on it. And as I tried to put my face in the water, get the goggles on, there's bubbles there. And I got my face closer to it, and it had a foul, foul smell. And I thought, there's no way I can put my face in the water, something's going on. I went back to the beach a few days later, same thing. Beach again a week later, same thing, and I sat and cried. I don't know about the rest of you, but when I have a situation that frustrates me to tears, I think about my mother. And what my mother would have said to me was, for God's sakes, Michaela, you're going to sit and cry, you're going to do something about it. So, like probably all of you, I decided that I needed to do something about it. All right, for just a minute, as we're thinking about water quality, I'd like you to, and we call this is my teaching background, a think, pair, share. I'd like you to just think for a minute about what attracted you to this area, to the Mashpee area, the Falmouth area, Wapoit or Papaneset Bay. And just think about the images, the sounds, the smells that attracted you here. Just take a minute to do that, and then turn to the person next to you and just take 30 seconds or so to just tell them what that is. So imagine the sounds, the smells, and the images. Okay? Go ahead. Have you talked to each other just a little? Could just a couple people tell me what came up at your tables? Anybody?
Theater. There's great theater here, about all kinds of community theater and music and artists and poets and also older people who are vibrant and alive and still producing. It's a great place for older people.
Okay, which really gets to the housing crisis. In order to keep those things going, we need to have housing for workers to work. Anybody else?
The smell of the sea air.
The smell of the sea air, that wonderful salt smell. Mm-hmm. Yes.
When I came here, my husband couldn't walk as briskly as he could, and I loved going to the Mashpee South Beach, reversing the car, and he would sit and tailgate and then get to the beach. And now, if you're handicapped in any way, you most likely cannot get to the beach, and it's not very much.
At this point, you actually, once they bring, you can't sit in the car and look at the beach anymore. You're right. You're right. Climate change. Yes.
I feel fresh, renewed, and nature.
Okay. Fresh, renewed, and nature. All of the nature. Okay. This is last June at South Cape Beach. The seaweed was about a foot high, and the smell was so bad that people came to the beach, but they didn't stay. It's unsurprising. South Cape Beach is located between Popponesset Bay, as you know, and Waquoit Bay. Both are highly impaired by nitrogen, the extreme nitrogen loading there. And what we found is a loss of critical marine habitats, fish kills, shellfish decline. I know up to 2 years ago I used to find on Waquoit Bay, I would find scallop shells, and scallop shells everywhere. Last year, not a one. Loss of recreation, the water's dirty in the bays. Aesthetic value, you're losing that salt smell that somebody mentioned that is so appealing to all of us. We're going to be looking at if it continues lower property values and a loss of tourism. So there are environmental issues, there are economic issues that impact our health and well-being, our whole economic health. All right, in talking about nitrogen loading, it's important to talk about the cause of nitrogen loading. As you can see, about 80% is due directly to Title V systems. Title V systems are the systems that you have. You flush the toilet, it goes to your Title V system. It's what most of the Cape was built on. It's a system that worked really well when we didn't have a lot of people here, and does not work very well now. Septic. Yeah. About 7% is the fertilizer we use, and about 6% is runoff. The other 7% are natural causes, pollutants that might flow in, and things that we really don't have much control over. But we do have control over 93%. Okay, this is a traditional Title V system, and this illustrates why it's problematic on the Cape. As you can see, you use the water in any way, and it comes down to your septic tank, It goes to your leach pit, and then it goes right down into the groundwater. It's totally untreated. It's in your groundwater in a short matter of time. If you think about when you take young kids to the beach and they would dig a hole in the sand and they'd fill the sand with water, they'd have to keep running back to the shoreline to get buckets and buckets and buckets of water because the sand absorbed the water so quickly. Well, the sand is absorbing our effluent that quickly. Okay, I don't dare use the pointer, I don't want to lose the slide. I think it's important to look at the fact that it's not just development near the waters that's caused or contributes to the problem. We're looking at two watersheds, and as you can see, on the left is the Wacoit Bay watershed. It includes large portions of Falmouth, Mashpee, and Sandwich. So any development that is on Title V or any fertilizer use or runoff in any of those areas is contributing to the impairment of Wacoit Bay. On the right, you can see Popponesset Bay, which is Mashpee, Barnstable, and Sandwich, and the same thing. So any of the rivers, the other bodies of water, Mashpee Wakeby Lake, which you can see up near Sandwich on the right, any of those are eventually flowing into our bays and causing impairment. Right. This is the Mashpee River last summer. Jason Goldstein did a drone shot of the Mashpee River. And this is what it looked like. Now the Mashpee River is part of the watershed for Popponesset Bay, flows directly into Popponesset Bay. And you can see how impaired it is. Even where there's some water going through, you can see the green that's located within it. I don't know if anybody saw the New York Times article, January 1st last year, Toxic Stew, talking about our waters. This quote is from that. So the encrusted remains of ribbed mussels choked in gray-black goo that smelled like garbage and felt like mayonnaise. The muck on the bottom of the Mashpee River gets deeper every year, suffocating what grows there. And again, that travels to Popponesset Bay. This is Mashpee's Director of Natural Resources, Ashley Fisher. Ashley is in rescuing some of the small animals from the muck. Again, New York Times, expanding aquatic dead zones, shrinking shellfish harvests. The collapse of vegetation like eelgrass, a buffer against worsening storms. In the ponds, water too dangerous to touch. When we decided to move here full-time about 8 years ago, bought our house, my husband and I both knew the water was impaired. It was different than the water of our 30s when we would come here and kayak and stand up paddle and swim. We could see the difference, but the water was it still looked beautiful. It still smelled beautiful. That was only 8 years ago. I can't believe the difference. Okay, at first look, you would think that this is grass coming down on the shores of the pond. That's Mashpee Wakeby Pond last June. It's a cyanobacteria outbreak. Now remember, Mashpee Pond is at the head of the Mashpee River, which is flowing into Popponesset Bay. Cyanobacteria causes vomiting, diarrhea, liver damage, other health effects. There's an advisement that children and animals should be kept out of the water. The woman who took this picture said there were a lot of people vacationing that week, and there were a lot of sad children sitting on the shoreline not being able to go near the water. Mashpee Wakeby isn't the only lake that's being affected by our pollution. Now, nitrogen is the primary pollutant of salt water. Phosphorus, which also comes from Title V systems and fertilizer and runoff, is the major pollutant of fresh water. We don't need to read through this. What's missing from this is a Shumet pond that was closed for 2 months in the fall for the same reason. And again, all of these bodies of water are in our watershed. They contribute, if you're at a Shumet pond, it's contributing to the problems that are in Woquoit Bay. All right, now that I have everybody sad, thinking about our waterways, I want to talk to you about some solutions, but let me pause first to see if anybody has any comments or questions about the extent of the impairment. Yes?
How much is the plume from the base also causing problems? And that's not being fixed, I don't believe.
Okay, I left out the plume. I had a shot of the plume on John's Pond and the mess on John's Pond from the plume this summer. I left it out of this because I wanted to talk about the nitrogen impairment, and it just broadens the topic so much. It's a huge problem with PFAS, and that's another problem we're going to be dealing with. That was worse this summer than it was before, and it continues to grow. So it's a huge issue. Yes?
This nitrogen you talk about, is that a product of people fertilizing their lawns? Where does that nitrogen come from?
Okay, that's a good question. Where does the nitrogen come from? About 80% of nitrogen comes right from Title V tanks, septic systems, which is what most of the Cape, for all good reasons, way back, was built using. 7% is fertilizer. 6% is runoff. So we can actually, when we get our act together, we can control and reduce 95%. Yes.
Issues. Is the state or federal government taking any task on it because it was from the airbase?
I'm sure that they will be. We're waiting. Joint Base Cape Cod realizes they have a responsibility. And right now, the county is working at a county level for cleanup for PFAS. I would hope that money would be coming through, probably the federal government through the state, but I don't know that.
Is there any treatment for the cyanobacteria? Any kind of treatment you can apply to the ponds?
So my understanding is cyanobacteria is common to ponds, and healthy ponds are able to absorb it and not have these outbreaks. It's when we have unhealthy ponds, which we're seeing with the nutrient loading, and also temperature, the increase in temperature, although a Shumet pond was closed most of the fall.
So I've been kayaking to it across, I don't know what the bay is called, with a group, and we went up the river,
Yeah.
Mashpee River, last June, and our wonderful group leader, 80 years old, got a serious, very, very serious infection because he had a cut on his toe, and they did not recognize it in Cape Cod. He had to go up to Boston. It was a major months he was ill, and he just had a cut on his toe. He didn't go swimming; he would kayak.
So a cut on his toe from kayaking, and had such an infection that he was traveling to Boston to figure out what it was.
They didn't recognize it.
Right. No, though we are in, if we haven't passed the tipping point, we're at a tipping point with reclaiming and restoring our waters. So thinking about some solutions, it's really important for me to say that the towns involved, so we looked, and if we're looking at Woquoit, it's Sandwich, Falmouth, and Mashpee. If we're looking at Papanesset, it's Barnstable, Mashpee, and Sandwich. all of the towns have local comprehensive nitrogen management plans. They have things in place. What they have in place hasn't been able to keep up with the amount of nitrogen that's going in the water. But it's not as though towns have sat by and not recognized that there's a problem and not done anything. There are clear plans. And I'm going to get more into those, but the plans really involve ongoing monitoring. The School of Science from Dartmouth, SMAST, I can't remember the acronym, SMAST, is working with the Mashpee's Department of Natural Resources and the Mashpee Wampanoag Tribe with Natural Resources Department to monitor the quality of the waters. Each year they come back to the town with a report about the quality of the waters. What they've been showing, unfortunately, is the water is getting steadily worse. What we're hoping as we put more systems in place and move more quickly and more urgently, that we're going to start to see some waters improving. There's wetland restoration that's been going on, the partnerships between Falmouth and Mashpee, restoring the Upper Childs River. And there's, Barnstable is doing restoration projects, Falmouth is doing others. So there's numerous restoration projects where they're taking cranberry bogs and restoring those back to water bodies that will actually attenuate the nitrogen before it gets into other waters. So that's happening. It's not happening as quickly as we would like, but it's part of a plan that's happening. Runoff controls and fertilizer bylaws. All of the towns have plans for looking at waterways, identifying sources of major runoff, and taking care of them as money becomes available. Fertilizer bylaws are really limited to regulatory bylaws. There aren't prohibitive bylaws. They're regulatory, which means that you can't fertilize too close to a water body, and you can only fertilize certain months of the year. Aquaculture, putting quahogs and oysters into the bays and ponds, or not the ponds, I'm sorry, into the bays and into Jehu and the saltwater ponds has been effective. What's happened is the quahogs and the other shellfish can't keep up with the nitrogen. If we could stem back the nitrogen that's going in, they would be able to do their job. They filter a tremendous amount of nitrogen, but not as much as we're loading. We've begun, all of the towns have begun with centralized water treatment. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit, and also innovative alternative systems. Okay. This is a photo of Mashpee's almost complete wastewater treatment plant. It'll sewer 439 homes. The real success here is the plant is complete, and the plant will be able to sewer many more homes after this. This should be online within the next year. Falmouth just recently at their town meeting in November approved design for the next phase of their sewer treatment. Barnstable is continually moving from east to west to sewer. So each one of the towns keeps going to town meeting and to the voters to ask for necessary funding to design the next phase of sewering and then to implement the collection system necessary for sewering. It's important, it's critical that we sewer with urgency. What's most important is when you're thinking about what's really going to stop the nitrogen, you can get treated effluent down to 3 parts per million. Right now, most septic systems are putting out somewhere between 25 and 45 parts per million. So there's a huge difference when you can go to wastewater treatment and treat the effluent. We're also at a tipping point. Woods Hole scientists are now looking, saying we're at a tipping point. The water has gotten so exponentially more degraded over just the last few years. So the last thing I heard is if we don't act now, our waters might not recover at all. I think what's important to keep in mind is funding is available to pay part of the cost. Projects with intended use plans. Intended use plans are an engineer's design which is approved by voters and sent to the state. Projects with intended use plans qualify for SRF loans. Those are loans that are 0% interest in most cases, come through the federal government and the state. They also are eligible for principal forgiveness from the Cape and Islands Water Protection Fund. That was at 25% forgiveness just a year ago. We're hoping it's going to go back to 25% forgiveness, but at this point it's still 12% forgiveness of the total principal of the loan. Additionally, there's forgiveness from the Clean Water Trust and Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection, another 3.3% forgiveness. So the time to act is now. For individual homeowners, the Barnstable County's Aqua Fund makes loans available to hook up to the sewer. So those are 0, 2, and 4% loans depending upon income. Additionally, Governor Healy just approved another $12,000 of a tax rebate, a state tax rebate, to cover part of the sewer hookup cost. So those are in place for homeowners. Pause for questions.
Ask on those three loans that you talked about, are those to hook up to sewer or are those to upgrade the septic that bad?
Okay. So the SRF goes to cities and towns for sewering. Those are for your larger loans, usually 20-year loans so for example, the last phase of sewering that Mashpee put in was $54 million and an additional $12 million for upgrades. Those qualify for SRS 0% forgiveness loans and forgiveness. Barnstable County's Aqua Fund provides loans depending on income, no higher than 4%, and that would be replacement with an IA system as well as hooking up to the sewer. Does that?
Yes.
Okay.
Is there any long-term plan though to get Mashpee on sewer?
Yes, there's, and I'll talk about moving along more quickly in a minute. Mashpee has a 5-phase plan. It's, you can actually find it on their webpage. It is a comprehensive plan. It was approved by the county back in 2015. And essentially it maps out what part of the sewer is going to happen first, second, third, fourth, and fifth. It's an adaptive plan, which means that as each phase is implemented, you're going to be looking at the monitoring data that comes in to see if there's a difference. And you're going to move forward depending upon that. Mashpee is going to phase 2. It's gone to phase 2 for design. That will sewer an additional 1,288 homes. The design is nearly complete. In order for that to be built, though, Mashpee voters will need to approve the funding for the collection system. They're going to use the existing treatment plant is the plan, and they'll have to put in the pipes for collection. But Mashpee has, and all of the towns, have very clear plans that are approved of how they're going to move across to the sewer. What's changed is, and I'll get to the state in just a minute, but what's changed is the urgency with which we're moving forward. Mashpee initially passed their plan in 2015 with the hopes of starting this in 2017. We're going to be getting this up and running in 2025, so we're 8 years behind. So we have some catching up to do. Dawn?
I know that it's been unpopular to consider a moratorium on new development, not just homes, businesses as well. Has the town considered at all, having funds come from new development? In other words, we have to pay for this in the future. We don't have the capacity to handle additional additions to our sewage system. What are they doing about applications
Dawn, I don't know if you could hear her. She asked the question, what's the town of Mashpee doing with regard to new development and having new development help pay for the sewering? I would tell you that there is nothing in place on that end right now.
Are the new developments hooking up to their own private watershed like we did here? Can you see that?
So you have developments in Mashpee that are hooked up to their own private sewer treatment, but they're still putting in, and I'm getting ahead of myself because we've just transitioned to the fact that right now, no, you're fine. Right now, we're moving from putting in Title V systems when there's a new building to an innovative alternative system. So that change is taking place.
And most of the developers on board for that new system in residential?
If it's a Board of Health regulation, they have to be on board.
So is
Our-
that in place now that they have to turn the new environmentally friendly ones in?
That went through the Board of Health, I believe February 12th. Yes.
You may have mentioned this, but where does our drinking water come from?
Right now, it's important to clarify our drinking water, we are reassured our drinking water is safe. That said, all of our drinking water comes from a single source aquifer, which is the groundwater. So at this point, our drinking water is safe, but we're reassured right now our drinking water is safe. I would want to act on this while it's still safe. It's tested regularly. You get every one of us gets our water report, and it's tested. So you're talking about PFAS? Well, I believe, and I'm not sure of the answer to this, but my understanding is PFAS testing in the water takes place now and will take place in our sewerage in the near future. But don't hold me on that because I'm not certain. Yes?
Is there still a recommendation to put a filter on it, say a little pitcher, to filter the Mashpee water, or?
Every report that comes from the town says our water is safe. I drink my water. I drink filtered water because I'm able to get it out of my refrigerator, but I don't bother doing that if I'm making coffee in the morning. So if you're in town water, they're telling us it's safe, and I would have no reason to think otherwise.
Thank you.
Okay. So even if we sewer, even if we put through 5 phases of the sewer, we're not going to be able to sewer the entire town. There are places that don't lend themselves to sewering. Where I live isn't expected to be sewered for a very, very long time. And as I said, there are places that you would have so many pumps, and it's not reasonable to be able to sewer there. So in places like that, innovative alternative systems are being proposed. These are, so I've taken a picture from MASTC, and I am trying to remember, it's Massachusetts Alternative Septic System Test Center is where they're doing these. It's in Sandwich. They are very receptive to the public. Brian Baumgartel from the county is heads up the center, and they're very responsive to groups that want to go and visit. They're constantly developing new IA systems. Right now, an IA system, the major difference is, as you can see, the regular system, a traditional septic system, has the leach pit that goes, the effluent goes right down, untreated into your sand, into your groundwater. Once you put an IA in, there's a denitrification unit that takes out a tremendous amount of the nitrogen. So right now, these systems are putting out somewhere between 6 and 10 parts per million, as opposed to 25 to 45. So they make a huge difference in the amount of nitrogen that goes into the ground. But when we look at the freshwater ponds, currently these systems aren't filtering effectively, filtering phosphorus from the effluent. So we still have a phosphorus problem. They continue to develop them. There are always new plans in the works, and they have to be tested for a period of time and approved by Mass Department Mass Department of Protection. And we're seeing new ones on a regular basis. So those are going in the ground now, and they'll make a tremendous difference. Now, I don't know if anyone here has been to the Green Center. You should definitely go visit the Green Center. The Green Center is in East Falmouth, and this is an article that's it's a citizens petition article that's going to go to Falmouth Select Board the next time they meet. The Green Center actually talks about urine recycling. So you can see, and I've taken all these images from their webpage. So you start, urine is collected, instead of being flushed down, the toilet accommodates a urine stream to be collected. The urine's collected. The plan is it's picked up, it's pasteurized, it's turned into fertilizer. The fertilizer is trucked and it's put on fields. It's innovative, it's exciting. Hilda and Earl will, if you're in touch with the Green Center, and they're easy to find online, they arrange tours of their home, which is totally green. It's really well worth seeing. Faye?
Does that mean that the nitrogen has been removed? Does that mean that the nitrogen has been removed from the urine?
Approximately, urine contributes to the waste approximately 85 to 95%. So when you take the urine out of effluent, you've essentially removed the nitrogen. Currently, what they're looking for, what the Green Center is looking for, they're working with groups in Falmouth to set up a testing cycle, because anything that's approved by the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection has to go through a testing cycle. So that's what they're looking to do right now, and that article goes to Falmouth Select Board within a couple weeks. Here and then there.
I just have a question. So I heard that it was very successful, this test. So when your urine becomes fertilizer and goes onto the ground, is the nitrogen taken out?
It's used on the crops. So it's distributed in such a way that the crops are getting the amount of nitrogen and phosphorus that they need. One of the points that the Green Center mentions is that phosphorus is not going to be readily available forever, and we need phosphorus for growing plants. So to take our phosphorus, which is a valuable fertilizer, along with nitrogen, which works really well as a fertilizer, which is why our plants we've got all the growth, to take that and just flush it away, they would argue is not reasonable. You have the Green Center. They're affiliated with many organizations. I think that the work they're doing is at the Green Center right now, but I'm not an expert there, so that's my understanding. So right now, I told you we all have management plans, and they're good plans. But the state's saying, we're not moving more quickly enough. We're way too slow. So the state has come in, this happened last July 8th of last year, and the state is giving towns a choice. They can opt into a 20-year watershed plan to reduce nitrogen loading, and they need to do that and file their notice of intent by July 2025. The watershed plan has to show that we're going to reduce nitrogen down to what they call the total maximum daily load. within 20 years. Total maximum daily load means what a healthy pond or body of water can assimilate itself. So some amount of nitrogen is always going in, but a healthy pond can assimilate the TMDLs. We're putting in way more than that. So this is going to require us to do this within a 20-year time period. And if we don't, we're going to be required to replace every Title V system in Mashpee with an innovative alternative system within 5 years. Yes? No?
So if the town signs up with the NIS, is that what it's called, notice of intent?
Yes. Yep.
Does a homeowner get some help with when and if they have to replace that septic system? Is that how I understand it?
Yeah. So the town of Mashpee is submitting a watershed plan with a plan, a 20-year plan, as the state requires. Homeowners will receive, that comes back to, so if you're sewered, if you have to replace a failed Title V system, there's money that can be borrowed from the Aqua Fund. There's money also that's rebated through the state income tax. If you are hooking up to a sewer, it's the same thing. So yes, there's help for owners.
Why would towns not, because every town is not signed up with the
They don't need to be signed up yet. They have until this year. I think most towns will sign up. I think the only town that is opting for IAs is on the Outer Cape, but I think most towns will, because putting in IAs throughout town, first of all, isn't near as effective. You're looking at, right now, with the technology, you're looking at still putting out 6 to 10 parts per million as opposed to 3, or as opposed to none with urine diversion if we keep there. I think it's really important to say, so each town has a plan, the state has a plan. We're going to have to move more quickly with our plans because of the state mandate. But there's also collaboration between towns that share each watershed. So there's intermunicipal agreements which actually allow towns to work together to share costs, to share data monitoring costs, to share their data. For the Papaneset watershed, we have had a plan in place since 2017. And that's with Barnstable and Sandwich. The plans, the IMAs, actually have towns agree to what they're putting into the watershed. So for example, Papaneset Bay, Mashpee is putting in 74.5% of the nitrogen into Papaneset Bay. Barnstable is 16% and Sandwich is 9.5%. So the towns are working together in regular meeting groups. We've been meeting with the Papaneset IMA group monthly since July. And the Falmouth group, the Wacoit Bay group, Mashpee Select Board just unanimously approved an IMA agreement. Sandwich and Barnstable agreed to this IMA. The select boards haven't signed them yet because we just signed ours last week. So it now needs to go to the other select boards. In that case, Mashpee has 44%, Falmouth has 50%. So the towns are agreeing to work together to collaborate to address this problem in a way that benefits each town as far as total cost goes, and actually reduces the nitrogen loading more quickly than any town could act on its own. Yes?
How does the town prioritize hookups? Like, they put the lot, but they put the major sewer in. How do they prioritize how fast they're going to go down streets and hook up?
Okay.
Is it because it's near watersheds or water areas?
Well, so, we could think, and 40 years ago, it would have been true that if you're right near the water, you're causing the pollution. Now, if you're in the watershed, you're causing the pollution. So the towns have looked at areas with engineered plans, looking at the watersheds for the areas that most likely will show the most value once they're sewered. Unfortunately for Wacoit Bay, Falmouth has 14 watersheds, and they're moving as quickly as they're able, just as Mashpee is. Unfortunately for Wacoit Bay, Falmouth is moving east to west, or I'm sorry, west to east. And Barnstable is moving east to west. And it's the way they're laying the system in and how much they can do at one time. I mean, you can't rip up every road in town at the same time. So people are working in that regard. So what can you do? Because there's a lot to be done. If everybody here has an open town meeting, and I think most people here are from Mashpee, the open town meeting is coming up in May. Participate. Vote for clean water articles. Then, if you have a debt exclusion, which is what pays for these, you'll also have to go to the ballot and vote. So the article, if it's passed at town meeting, and that would be, if you're in Mashpee, for the next 1,288 homes to hook up to the existing treatment plant, that would be passed at town meeting. It would need a 2/3 vote. And then it would also need to be voted by the majority at a general election. So vote. Fertilizer's only 7% of the problem, but if we could get rid of 7% of the problem, that would be a lot of nitrogen. If you plant native plants and clover, they don't require any fertilizer. And additionally, because the root systems are more complex, they pull more nitrogen out of the soil. So planting native is a good way that everybody can contribute without spending any money. If you plant native, you can skip the fertilizer. Any place in the watershed, obviously, if you're really close to water, fertilizer is going right into that water body every time it rains. Even if you're further away from water, you're still in the watershed. So the less you can use fertilizer, the better. And the last is just stay engaged. And I put Association to Protect Cape Cod's logo here. There are so many pond groups that are functioning right now and very active. There are groups to protect each one of the bays. Any of those are really good things to get involved with. There is also there are many committees, boards, and commissions at each town that have vacancies. That's a really important way to get involved and have your voice heard. Okay. I think I've answered a lot of questions, but I don't know if anybody has any others.
Yes, do you know anything about that 300-unit tax department is going to put in Falmouth? That's going to be store or site down?
In Falmouth?
Yeah.
I do
There's the
not.
one on the Sandwich Road, they want to put 300 units.
I'm aware of where you're talking about, but I don't know. I should. I don't. I'll find out for you. Yes.
I understand now that fertilizers are something only 77% problem. But are any towns thinking about trying to control that problem? Like people around ponds or in the water or in the watershed, restricting the use of fertilizer? Is that something they could?
Yep, exactly. So if you are right near, you abut water, and you're working with the Conservation Commission, they will regulate the fertilizer you use. There is not a fertilizer ban. Fertilizer is also regulated throughout the town of Mashpee with regard to the time of year you can use it. So there's some regulations in place. Orleans is the only town on the Cape who has moved forward with an all-out fertilizer ban, and that needs to be approved by the state before that can go forward.
My question was about the same.
Okay. Yeah, one of the things everybody can do is to monitor their use of fertilizer or not use fertilizer at all. But again, that's 7%.
I'm curious to see, is there any way that our landscapers are being controlled with the amount of fertilizer that they're throwing on lawns?
So the time of year is controlled, and beyond that, it's, as I said, the fertilizer bylaw is regulatory, so it controls the time of year. There's certainly room to help educate landscapers who, want to work in Mashpee and are trying to do a good job. So there's probably room to educate, but there's room to educate homeowners as well. Yes.
This is kind of an extraneous question. Has the federal government given up the idea of putting a gun range on the base?
So the gun range at this point, I was going to say is on hold. That's not very helpful. At this point, things are on hold. I don't know that the federal government is not going to try to move forward with that. Certainly, that's something that doesn't have to do with nitrogen, but it certainly does have to do with environmental protection and with water quality. And looking at the gun range, I would go to APC's website for really good information and for some advocacy ideas about what you can do about the gun range, and also Holtec, which is on Cape Cod Bay.
Plus, we have the joint base coming on in April. It's your opportunity to talk to the person in charge.
Beautiful. The joint base is going to be here in April, so you can talk to the speaker from the joint base to ask that question. All right. Thank you very, very much.